Francis the Predator Ngannou, the UFC's most terrifying man, became the undisputed heavyweight champion this past weekend after defeating interim champ Ciryl Gane via decision. But that decision will now force the 35-year-old Ngannou to make a decision of his own. Ngannou and the UFC haven't been on the best of terms recently, and the promotion company's prized fighter may be on his way out. Could boxing be an option for the most powerful puncher in UFC history? And if so, could a bout with boxing's heavyweight champion Tyson Fury be next? Let's take a look. Sit back, relax, and take this in. Ngannou's ascent in the UFC was unlike any other, a truly meteoric rise to the top. Within 2 years of his debut, at 29 years old, he had dispatched legends like Andrei Arlovski and Alistair Overeem with brutal knockouts on the way to his first title shot at UFC 220 against Stipe Miocic. Ngannou was, in the words of UFC president Dana White, the sport's next global rock star. However, Ngannou lost via decision to Miocic, and that's where his beef with the UFC began. After the fight, White was blunt about Ngannou, saying that his ego had gotten out of control. Things only got worse when Ngannou lost his next fight against Derek Lewis at UFC 226 in what was considered one of the most boring fights of all time. Things were looking grim for the next supposed global rock star, but sure enough, Ngannou promptly got back on track. Ngannou faced Curtis Blaydes at UFC Fight Night 141 and knocked him out early in round 1. Over his next 4 fights, all of them victories, Ngannou racked up 3 more knockouts, all within 90 seconds of the opening bell. Soon enough, he was labeled as the UFC's best knockout artist, with White saying Ngannou's punches pack as much power as a small car. Despite his exploding popularity, however, the UFC didn't immediately set up Ngannou with a title shot, and instead promoted the trilogy fight between Daniel Cormier and Miocic, which led to Ngannou becoming even more frustrated with management. Finally, more than 2 years after he knocked out Blaydes, in March of 2021, he got his shot at UFC 260, ultimately dominating the champion Miocic and knocking him out in the second round in the empty Apex facilities in Las Vegas. 4 years after being labeled as the guy by Dana White, Ngannou had finally become champ. Should have been smooth sailing from there on out, right? Wrong. In the wake of that fight, the UFC scheduled Ngannou's title defense against the contender Lewis for August. Ngannou, wanting more time to celebrate his victory while also dealing with visa issues in his home country of Cameroon, agreed to a title fight in September. Instead, however, the UFC put Ngannou on the shelf and slid Ciryl Gane in to fight Lewis for the interim belt, despite Ngannou claiming that he had been told he would be fighting in September by the UFC via email. Gane beat Lewis to become interim champ, which brought us to the fight at UFC 270, where, despite being limited after suffering a torn MCL and other ligament damage in his knees just 25 days before the fight, Ngannou showed his improved repertoire and versatility, handling Gane on the ground, leading to a unanimous decision victory. And apparently, the UFC knew about Ngannou's knee problems but didn't offer to delay the fight. Clearly, Ngannou's beef with Dana White had become a sore spot by that point. Further strained this past summer when Ngannou became one of several UFC fighters to publicly question their pay after Logan Paul raked in $20 million for his exhibition bout with Floyd Mayweather. In response, after Ngannou's victory, White did not put the belt around the man they call the Predator and didn't show up to any post-fight press conferences. And while the champion cause in Ngannou's contract requires him to either fight 3 more times in the UFC or wait a year before he can move on, Ngannou has stated that he has no problem waiting out the rest of his contract. What waits for him on the other side of that door is the question. Boxing's undisputed heavyweight champion Fury invited Ngannou to come and get some real money by fighting him. Ngannou promptly responded with a mock-up poster pitting the two fighters against each other with the date 2022 across the side. The Predator earned a base of $600,000 for his win over Gane, compared to the $25 million Fury just raked in for his last 2 fights against Deontay Wilder. I think it's safe to say we know where the money is. And never say never to a UFC return. A rematch versus Miocic or Lewis could be in the books. It's also possible he could throw down against former champion Jon Jones in an even more anticipated fight. But Ngannou himself said in an ESPN interview that he's done fighting for those lower wages, and that he feels the UFC doesn't promote him properly. There's no doubt that Ngannou's departure from the UFC would be a huge blow for the promotion, and would be yet again another example of the company mismanaging its talent. So, what do you think? Will Ngannou try his luck against Fury, or will he return to the MMA? Does this spell big trouble for the future of the UFC? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. As always, we'll see you next time.